Give us your sense of where the restaurant industry is in the New York area and more broadly.
Hi, David. I think to answer the question, we have to just acknowledge that the restaurant industry is not monolithic. So there are all kinds of different kinds of restaurants. I think that the full service restaurant segment is going to probably have the toughest time coming back. And that's where most, but not all of our restaurants lie. I think the fast casual, fine casual restaurant segment is going to come back well sooner because those are businesses that didn't necessarily rely on how many people were sitting in the dining room at the same time. They've had a pretty robust takeout and pickup and delivery model coming into this. So that's a really good segment. So we'll see how it all goes.
So what does that mean for your operation? Because you're really known for a lot for high-end restaurants, which you go into and you eat. You do not take out so much, although you do have some of the latter as well. As you look forward to opening back up, what does that tell you about how you're going to open up?
I think what we're all going to see in the full service business is that for some period of time, and we don't really know how long it's going to last, the only way to recover any kind of revenue is going to be to bring people back to work safely. And what that means is that in a kitchen, which is not designed for people to be working, 6 feet apart from one another, you're going to see way fewer menu items. You're going to see fewer hours of operation because you can't bring in a whole bunch of different people, a whole bunch of different crews working cheek to jowl the way we used to. And you're probably going to see businesses that are finding entrepreneurial ways to cook really good food and to share that food, but not by welcoming people into their restaurants. So you'll see curbside pickup, lots of delivery. You'll see lots of businesses doing things that you never would have expected, turning their restaurants into a wine store, turning their restaurants into a type of grocery store where the regulars at the restaurant trust the way that restaurant purchases produce and fish and meats and cheese and wants to actually reduce their number of trips to the grocery store, but wants to have a restaurant that they can trust either providing grocery kits, meal kits, or maybe even the finished product.
So what does it mean in the meantime? We hear stories about going in and having waiters in masks and maybe having plexiglass between tables, not having nearly as many tables. Is that sustainable for the restaurant industry? You were widely quoted as saying, I'm not sure we can really reopen until a vaccine comes. I'm not sure that was exactly in context, but do we need to wait till there's a vaccine before we can really go back to restaurant, eating, dining?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be about. I don't think it's going to be about waiting till a vaccine. I think that it's going to be waiting till the public at large develops a kind of demand that says we read the news just like everybody reads the news. We read scientific reports, and when the public at large collectively feels a sense of confidence about going out and dining in restaurants, that's when you're going to see things start to happen. And I think in the meantime, it's going to be tough, David, because restaurants, the way the restaurant economy works, it's been pretty hard with decreasing margins for many years to make money anything less than I'd say about 80% occupancy. So if to make it safe to bring people into our restaurants, we're looking at 50 or 40 or 30% occupancy. I just don't really know how restaurants can do that for very much time. I think what we're going to wait for is not necessarily. I'm sorry, somebody's keeps calling me, and I'm trying to figure out.
We're all having this experience, Danny, wherever we are. Believe me, we're familiar with it.
Yeah. At least we don't have a dog barking in the background right now. That's the other thing that I'm hearing about from everybody. But what I was going to say is this. A vaccine will be nice. I do believe that there are many steps that can create that type of consumer demand and safety before that. For example, if we find that we're going to have some type of remedy so that if people really believed, seeing all the data, that if I were to get the virus, I've taken all the precautions I know how to take, masks, distancing, washing my hands, and yet if I still were to get the virus, there's a remedy out there that would make me feel even that my low odds of mortality or fatality are even lower. That's the kind of mid step. I think other mid steps that restaurants can employ, and we'll all be looking for these because we don't know when there's going to be a vaccine. Um, so we'll be looking for things like what's the role that testing can play? What's the role that testing can play for our own staff to feel comfortable coming in? What's the role that testing of our own staff is going to play in terms of you as a consumer feeling more comfortable coming in? And I just think that every little thing we do can actually mean a lot. But I just don't want to give undue hope because until we get to the point where restaurants can actually have enough business, and let's not forget that bar business is a big part of what makes even an 80% capacity in a restaurant work. Um, we can sell cocktails out the door, but let's face it, that's a whole lot different than what we used to have, which was a full bar with another layer of people waiting for their table. So, look, we're going to get to the other side of this. This too shall pass, but it's probably going to be many, many, many weeks before we get to that phase of thriving again, like restaurants once did. And in the meantime, this is tapping one of the best parts of being in this business. Nobody got into this industry because it was an easy buck. We got into this business because we love taking care of people and because we're entrepreneurs who always find another way. And we're going to find some really interesting new revenue models right now where we can provide our hospitality to you even when you're not in our restaurant. And if we're really lucky, some of those methods and business scenarios will actually endure and help our industry even after we get back to serving you inside the restaurant.
Will those new ways involve as many people? Because you at Union Square Hospitality Group have always been focused on your people, on your employees. So many people lost their jobs all across the country in restaurants. Are we looking at a world where maybe the entire industry will employ fewer people?
I think in the near term, absolutely, because there's no way that we're going to go from 0 to 100 overnight. And we've been as transparent as we possibly can with our team. We have a weekly call with everybody who's part of the Union Square Hospitality Group family. Many, many of them, sadly, are not employed today by USHG, but we're staying in contact because we want to get to that, to that point as soon as we possibly can of being able to employ all of the people who either choose to move back to New York. Many of them, frankly, David, have left New York City and are rationally asking themselves, do I want to go back there? Well, we hope that they will. We hope that there will be a point when we get back to full employment. But it would be disingenuous to say that, in July or August or September or October, we're going to go from 0 back up to 100. And we're going to build the business, hopefully, with consumer demand. And I'll get back to what I said to you earlier. Consumers are going to have a whole lot to do with this. I cannot tell anyone that they should feel safe sooner than they want to feel safe. And let me a quick analogy. After 9/11, we already had the technology of metal detectors. We just hadn't deployed it everywhere. But it took metal detectors to make an average person feels safe getting on an airplane again. That said, I was willing and able to fly probably within 3 weeks of 9/11 for a business trip. It took my wife, Audrey, probably a year, maybe a year and a half before she felt comfortable doing that. And I feel like it's the same thing. She wasn't wrong and I wasn't right, but I think that different people are going to feel differently. Now, one thing about this pandemic is that the statistics obviously show here that in terms of mortality, younger people have had a much lower rate than older people. And it may be that unlike flying, we might be able to see generations feeling more comfortable coming back more quickly to dining in restaurants. And we're open, but it's going to be that demand that is going to make us really know when we can do this. The other thing I would add, just quickly, is that in our case, a lot of our restaurants are actually connected to other activities. So, for example, we're
Yeah.
in art museums or ballparks or hotels. And so we're going to take our cues in a lot of those cases from those organizations as well.
We're talking with Danny Meyer. He's the head of the Union Square Hospitality Group about the restaurant industry. But let me understand what you're saying, because it is obviously a question of whether people are confident to come back, not just whether they can come back. We've talked to people in other sectors who say exactly the same thing. Are you saying really we have to wait for the science as a practical matter, that there's not that much, we don't have the equivalent of the metal detector for TSA to really make me feel comfortable going back into the restaurant?
As of this minute, I don't know of a virus detector. We will absolutely be employing everything we can. It could be a thermometer, and that may give you some sense of comfort. It may be testing our employees. There might even be, the kind of things I'm starting to hear about are things like health passports, where when you show up at the restaurant using a QR code or some other means that could potentially connect to our reservation system, you can let us know that you're healthy. And that would then make everybody else in the dining room feel more healthy. Listen, this is a two-way street. It starts with our staff. It's got to feel safe for our staff to come to work. That involves everything from public transportation feeling safe. It also involves for our staff, if we're going to be serving you, our staff wants to know that you're healthy, because let's just face it, the restaurant business is one of a lot of human contact. I do not know how to pour a bottle of wine from 6 feet away. Maybe what that means is you're not going to have sommeliers pouring your wine from now on, or at least for the near term. We'll be adjusting any way we can so that we can get back open just as soon as we can.